Ted was born into an extended family in Brooklyn, New York, and they all lived together in an apartment building that his grandmother owned. Ted thought that he was so good at baseball that he could be a famous baseball player, and that was actually his first career choice. And because he was so good at music, he thought that if baseball didn't work, he would be a famous musician. If the music didn't work, his last effort would be to become a doctor. And as we all know, that has been his shining glory.
Ted was a medical student at Columbia University. Ted came up to the operating room one day and he was very eager and enthusiastic, as he is today for that matter, and he was somewhat breathless at that time. And I remember he said, Dr. Katz, I'm really interested in anesthesia. Would it be okay if I came in at night and just followed you around and so you could show me what anesthesia was like? And I said, of course, son, I'd be happy to show you around.
Ted came along, and as a bright and brash medical student saying he had developed an artificial heart, I mean, that was kind of a stunner. And so, Ted, show me what you've got. And by gosh, he really had something. And it was, we took it to one or two of the cardiac surgeons, and they weren't too impressed.
He decided he wasn't going to take no for an answer, and he actually went outside of the medical establishment and contacted Dow Corning to see if they would build a prototype for him, and they did. They agreed to do that. This then was the springboard for later inventions of Ted's. In 1972, Ted moves to Salt Lake City, Utah with his young family to accept a position at the University of Utah, which becomes his lifelong career.
There was really high-powered research going on, probably some of the best teaching and clinical education in the nation going on there. And Ted was at the center of all of that.
Some of our faculty and researchers went with Ted to places like the Hardware Ranch, where they did studies of the anesthetic effect of different drugs on the big game animal.
Interestingly enough, the use of drugs that were developed at Hardware Ranch sort of became the state of the art around the nation.
Ted was extraordinarily good at working with industry to help support clinical research. And I think if one were to look at the chronology of industry replacing NIH and federal funding, you would probably see that Ted was in the lead at doing this probably in the mid-70s.
He spent that year at the University of Leiden studying Dr. Paul Janssen's fentanyl drugs for Janssen Pharmaceutical Company.
As a result of which year and the work he did over there, fentanyl analogs, including sufentanil, were approved in the United States. So he's contributed a great deal in terms of developing drugs from the medical standpoint.
This guy has made real major contributions to American anesthesia, to world anesthesiology.
Your innovative work with fentanyl changed cardiac anesthesia for sure, but your innovations with the fentanyl lollipop is making and will continue to make an enormous impact on our academic future as a department, and probably, almost certainly, I hope, you and I both hope, that it makes a substantial impact on the future of all of anesthesia. The royalties that are generated will go into the endowment, and long after you and I are gone, there'll be a strong department of anesthesiology at the University of Utah because of your work.
The Anesta Corporation in Salt Lake goes back a long way. Anesthesiologist Dr. Theodore Stanley and his colleagues began developing edible and suckable anesthetics in the 80s, but the payoff came in the mid-90s when a test market began at both Primary Children's and the University of Utah hospitals. Doctors gave this flavored lozenge containing a sedative to children in ER. It calmed their anxiety, making it easier to treat the injury or illness.
There are a lot of people that felt that that product would never be successful. In fact, going around with, in Czar's behalf, raising money, a lot of the venture capitalists said they'd looked at that deal many years ago and they said, there's no way that this would be successful. And now this year it'll do $400 million in revenue, so it's a phenomenally successful product. And I think it illustrates to a large extent and validates to a large extent Ted's vision.
When we were considering potential recipients of the Entrepreneur of the Year Award for the Mountain West Capital Network, we naturally came to Ted because he is not only a great community builder, but he's a successful entrepreneur.
He's an unceasing font of creative ideas.
So we recognize Ted as Entrepreneur of the Year because of his great contribution with Inesta and ZARS, and also in helping mentor many other entrepreneurs in Utah.
Well, Steve Borst and I were sort of looking around for somebody who had a great deal of experience and capability to join our group, and Ted immediately came to mind, and after a series of conversations, he thought what we were doing had a great deal of merit, so he teamed up with the two of us, and we've been in the process of raising funding for Upstart. He has a unique background as both a clinician and a founder of these companies, and is able to bridge the gap very, very nicely between the science and the business. He has a very infectious enthusiasm that really rallies the troops.
You'll honestly start believing that he can do whatever he puts his mind to, whether it is anesthesia or business, politics, anything. He honestly feels, and he passes that feeling on, that he could do whatever he wants.
He's a class act. He really is something. And you know, it's hard to find right now an individual I know who is so beloved by everybody, from sea to shining sea. He's well known and everybody adores him.